This lesson, we're going to be looking at the angle properties of a parallelogram. There are two properties that you should know. The first one is that opposite angles have the same size. This means that in the example, the top left and the bottom right, A and D, are equal. It also means the bottom left and the top right are equal, so C and B are equal. The other property is that adjacent angles are supplementary. That means that they add up to 180 degrees. If you're not sure what we mean by adjacent, it just means the two angles that are at each end of an edge. So you have four edges, and at the end of each edge, you have an angle. Those angles are adjacent. So for the top edge, these two are adjacent. For the bottom edge, these two are the adjacent angles. For the right edge, it's these two. And for the left edge, these two are the adjacent angles. The plan of the lesson is to show you why opposite angles in a parallelogram must have the same size and why adjacent angles must add up to 180. In other words, why they are supplementary. And at the end of the video, we'll have an example question to see if you've understood these properties. So why are opposite angles in a parallelogram equal? Let's investigate. First, I'm going to draw a diagonal line from the top left to the bottom right of the parallelogram. If you ignore the left and right edges of the parallelogram, you can see that the top and bottom edges along with the diagonal line form a Z shape. I'll highlight that so you can see it more easily. If you're familiar with alternate and corresponding angles, you should see that there are two alternate angles in this shape. Let's put them in. These two angles, because they are alternate angles, have the same value. Let's give them both a label. We can find two other alternate angles by changing the way we look at the parallelogram now, by finding another Z shape. If you ignore the top and bottom edges of the parallelogram, you should be able to see a Z shape lying on its side. I'll highlight it. You should see that there are two alternate angles here. Those two angles have the same value. Let's label them with the letter B. You should now see that the top left angle and the bottom right angle have the same value, A plus B. But they are opposite to each other, so this shows that the two angles that are opposite have the same value. What about the two other angles, the bottom left and the top right? Well, we don't know them yet, so let's put a question mark on those. Notice that the diagonal line has split the parallelogram into two triangles. I'll highlight one of them. The angles in the blue triangle are A and B and the unknown angle. So the sum of A plus B plus the unknown must be 180 degrees. But if you look at the white triangle, it has the angles A, B and the unknown. So A plus B plus the unknown must add up to 180 degrees. Because both of these equations are exactly the same, the something, the unknown value, must be exactly the same, which means that these two angles, the top right and bottom left, have the same value. We'll relabel them with the letter C. And given that these two angles are opposite, it satisfies the property that opposite angles in a parallelogram are equal in size. And so we have the top left and bottom right are equal, and the bottom left and top right, which are opposite angles, and they are equal. Now that we have the value of the unknown angle, I'm going to change the equation to represent all of the angles in the triangle. And because the top left and bottom right opposite angles have the value of A plus B, I'm going to rewrite those as one angle with values A plus B and remove the diagonal line. This will help us see why adjacent angles are supplementary. We can do so by highlighting each of the adjacent angles. The top two adjacent angles have the sum of A plus B plus C, but we know A plus B plus C equals 180 degrees. Those two adjacent angles are supplementary. It's the same for the bottom two adjacent angles. Their sum is A plus B plus C, and A plus B plus C equals 180 degrees. The same is true for the left adjacent angles. The top one is A plus B and the bottom one is C, so they are supplementary. And finally, for the right side adjacent angles, their sum is A plus B plus C, which is 180, so the adjacent angles are supplementary. So now you know why in a parallelogram opposite angles are equal and why adjacent angles are supplementary. Here's an example question to test your knowledge. The external angle in this parallelogram is equal to 78 degrees. Find the angles A and B. The first thing I would do is remember that opposite angles are equal. So whatever this angle is must be the same as B. So if we can find this, then we'd be able to find B. I'd also notice that these two angles, the one we know and this one, are on a straight line. So the sum of these two angles would be 180 degrees. So let's put a question mark for that angle. And so that we would have that the question mark angle plus 78 degrees equals 180 degrees. So now all we need to do to get the unknown angle is subtract 78 degrees from both sides. Well, what does that give us? 78 cancel, and then minus 78 will be on the right hand side of the equation. So that would mean that the unknown angle equals 180 degrees minus 78 degrees. And that is 102 degrees. So let's change that. Because this is 102 degrees, that must mean the opposite angle, B, equals 102 degrees. We know that 102 degrees was the value of the unknown angle, so I'm going to put this 102 here. Now, in order to find the angle A, remember that the two angles on one edge are supplementary, which means 102 degrees plus A, which is some value, must equal 180 degrees. We have that already up here. We have the 102 plus 78 degrees equals 180 degrees. So A must be equal to 78 degrees. And there we have our answers. So that's it for this lesson. Thank you for watching.